What's good, everybody? Welcome to another Lift Heavy Roll Hard vlog. Just waiting for the car to warm up before we get started. We got an awesome workout on the schedule today. It's a full body workout. We're gonna do max effort lower. So we're gonna do some heavy stiff leg deadlifts, some slow lowers. Then we're gonna do dynamic effort upper, so move really fast and explosive for the upper body with some med ball, clean in vertical throws, some rotational kettlebell swings, and then we'll also do some accessory movements or some timed sets for the upper body to get that crazy pump, get some good blood flow, and should be a good training day.
First exercise for this condensed conjugate workout is going to be a stiff leg deadlift. So I'm using the 3-day condensed conjugate split for hypertrophy. So just trying to build as much muscle as possible. So a lot of the main max effort movements that I'm using are really just me trying to go as heavy as possible, not necessarily to develop a bunch of strength, but get a really good hypertrophy stimulus. So instead of doing a regular deadlift, which can stimulate some hypertrophy and can be beneficial for that, I wanted to pick a variation of an exercise that put a little bit more direct load on the hamstrings and a little bit less direct load on the low back or the quads. And so that's why I'm doing a stiff leg deadlift. I'm warming up right now, so I haven't brought in the deficit just yet. And we're going to be working up to a 6-rep max. Now, unfortunately, my camera is crazy old, and I think I missed the very last set of deadlifts that I had, which kind of sucks. So I believe on this workout, I worked up to 255 for 6 reps. And I think the last warm-up I did was at 245. When training for hypertrophy, and especially when it comes to the main max effort movement, I like to do every warm-up set for the same amount of reps as the rep max that I'm going for. So if I'm trying to build as much muscle as possible, I definitely want to increase some of that training volume. So instead of doing like a set of 20 with an empty bar and then doing singles all the way up until I feel ready to do one heavy set of 6, I'll do a set of 6 reps for every single warm-up at each weight as I work up. So that way I'm just able to sneak in some extra volume, get a little bit more of a hypertrophy training stimulus. I will say this week, deadlifts felt amazing. You can see that I'm using a pretty big deficit. Those are 4 mats that are screwed together. And in mid-2023, I actually hurt my back deadlifting, which kind of sucked. And so I was kind of out of commission, and I couldn't deadlift for a while. I mean, I could deadlift. I just couldn't deadlift well, and couldn't deadlift very frequently. But I slowly started adding deadlifts back in, started just doing dumbbell deadlifts, then started doing some RDLs, and now we're cooking with gas when it comes to stiff leg deadlifts, and now we're even doing stiff leg deadlifts on a deficit. So the other thing for this workout is I'm really focusing on making sure that my start position is really strong and making sure that I am being strict with a stiff leg deadlift position. So the main difference between a regular deadlift and a stiff leg deadlift is that on a stiff leg deadlift, your hips start really high. So you can kind of see that as I'm getting set here. This was my last warm-up at 245. As I'm getting set, you see where my hips are at right now. As I kind of pull tension and pull the slack out of the bar, I really don't drop my hips that much lower. I get my upper back and my mid back really tight, and then I start the reps from there, hit my 6 reps. In a normal deadlift, you'd ideally want to drop your hips a little bit lower and try to push off your quads a little bit more. So that was the max effort main movement for this workout. Like I said, I didn't get any video of the 255 deadlift, but it did feel heavy and it did feel really good hitting that 6-rep max. Now, the next exercise we have is something I've been working for probably a year now. Not this particular exercise, but this style of exercise called a slow lower. This is actually something I picked up from Brady Volmering from DAC, Performance and Health. What I really like about these exercises is that it's a ton of time under tension. Now, is this the best exercise for muscle growth? Probably not, but what I really like about this exercise is that it's great for mobility and building strength at end ranges. So a slow lower is basically you go for a minute. You can go, I think I did this for sets of 90 seconds, but you start at the top of a movement and you spend the entire 60 to 90 seconds lowering yourself into the bottom position. And what you'll notice is that some of the big muscles that you're used to just working all the time, they start to fatigue pretty quickly. And then a lot of these other smaller muscles that you're not used to really engaging, those start to fire and start to bark at you a little bit. And what's great about this is that you really have to control each position. And so this is a reverse Nordic that I'm doing here. It gives a crazy good stretch on the front of the quads. I wouldn't say this is the best feeling slow lower. If you don't have good mobility, this may just feel like kind of a stretch as opposed to like you're actually engaging the muscles and fighting the position all the way down. But I've been working these for a little bit. It felt good to do 3 sets of 90 seconds each for this exercise. Now, this exercise right here obviously looks very suspect, but it's great if you have the mobility to do it. My boy, Zach Farr, which you'll see later in the video, he actually came up with this. We were trying to find a way we could do a slow lower for our adductors. The adductor is kind of that big, meaty muscle on the inside of your groin and the inside of your thigh. And so I wanted to really strengthen and improve the mobility of my hips and adductors. Figured I could try to find some way to do that with a slow lower, and Zach ended up coming up with this exercise, which looks super suspect, but it's brutally effective. It can be great for grapplers who are guard players, even great for grapplers who aren't guard players, and just athletes in general. I would not suggest you do this right away. Maybe just do your body weight first. Just get used to kind of opening up your taint in that position, kind of letting gravity pull down on your legs as you do the slow lower on your adductors. Then as you get stronger in those positions, maybe also pair that with some Copenhagen planks, some banded adductor pulls, things like that. Then you can graduate to this exercise, which I don't even know what this exercise should be called. So you guys in the comments can let me know what we should call this exercise. As of right now, I just call it the Zach Farr Special. And this exercise feels crazy. Once you really start to lower yourself into that end range position, the way I like to do slow lowers is I try to take the first 50% of the time frame that I'm using. So since this was a 90-second set, the first 45 seconds, I tried to lower into the bottom position. And then the last 45 seconds, I really tried to hold at the bottom position. And it felt freaking gnarly. And it was a good time. So did 3 sets of this, and then I moved into the next part of the workout, which was dynamic effort upper. So like I said, this is a condensed conjugate workout. So we're doing max effort for the lower body, dynamic effort for the upper body. And so the dynamic effort upper body exercises were a superset of med ball, clean and vertical throw. I believe this is a 60-pound med ball, and I superset that with some rotational kettlebell swings. I really like mixing my upper body dynamic effort work, or I really like mixing rotational work into my upper body dynamic effort work. I think it's really important that as grappling athletes, if we're going to be fast and explosive, we can't just be fast and explosive, pushing and pulling forwards and upwards. It's also important that we get some good trunk rotation in there as well. And it's good to build strength in spinal rotation or trunk rotation, and it's also good to build speed and explosive power. So the rotational kettlebell swing is a great exercise that you could use for that. For this workout, I did 6 sets of 5 clean and vertical throws for the med ball. At least I'm pretty sure it was 5. Let's see. There's a second rep, third rep, and here we go. Yeah, pretty sure I did 5 reps per set here. The way I progress my dynamic effort training is using what's called a 3-week pendulum wave. So in week 1 of this phase, I did 6 sets of 3 reps on the clean and vertical throw. The next week, I did 4 reps per set, and then this week, I'm doing 5 reps per set. All right, so we finished up our dynamic effort work. Now we're going into our upper body accessories. Now we're doing something called timed sets. This is something that I picked up from Louis Simmons. this is really where we're not worried about the exact number of reps that we're getting. We just want to send it for a certain period of time. So for this workout, I did 3 sets of 90 seconds on these bench push-ups, really trying to get into the deepest range of motion possible and just try to stay moving as much as I can through the entire 90 seconds. What I love about timed sets is that they can be great for building muscle, or great for stimulating muscle growth, and great for building up your general physical preparedness and your conditioning, because you don't have to worry about reps. I've noticed sometimes that if I have a certain number of reps, like say I have to do 50 reps for a given workout, I might just kind of zone out the first 35, 40 reps and only really be intentional on the last 10. And I think it's important that we try to bring as much intention and intensity into every rep that we do, so that way we can get the most out of everything that we're doing on every set, every rep, every set, every exercise. So that's why I'm a big fan of time sets. You don't have to worry about how many reps you're going to get. You just have to really make sure that you're digging deep and feeling it on every rep that you do. And so I honestly have no idea how many reps I ever do on these sets. I don't really track it. I just go for it. Sometimes I come out the gate pretty hot and I try to do a ton of reps really fast. Sometimes I take the reps a little bit slower, try to feel the burn through the entire range of motion. The other timed set that we did for this workout was banded rows. I love using bands for these time sets, mainly because bands are a form of accommodating resistance. So the weight or the resistance profile, so to speak, is going to be lighter or less when you're in your most advantageous position. And then it gets harder when you're in your most advantageous position. So for the banded row, instead of having straight weight, where sometimes it might be kind of difficult to get the rep started, the bands allow you to have a little of a, I guess like a spot almost. You can think of it as someone giving you a little bit of a spot. They make it a little bit easier to get every rep started, but you still have to fight really hard to get your elbows back behind your body, engage all the muscles of your mid and upper back to finish those reps. Like I said, this is a timed set, so I usually do these time sets all as kind of like a big circuit. So I will do 90 seconds of bench push-ups, 90 seconds of the seated banded row, and then we have one more exercise that we did for this circuit, which was the bent over rear delt fly, and I ran through 3 sets of those. Usually I try to do 1 set of each back to back to back with very minimal rest, and then I usually take 1, maybe 2-minute rests between circuits. Now, this is one of my favorite exercises of all time, and that's the bent over rear delt fly. This is a great exercise to build up not only the strength of your rear delts or the backside of your shoulder, but also your mid back and a little bit of your traps. Depending on how you're doing this exercise, you may be missing out on some of the benefits of targeting your rear delts, and you may be kind of overloading a lot of your middle back, your upper back, and your traps. And that's okay, but if you really want to focus on hitting your rear delts, which is what I'm trying to do here, I like to think about, as I'm bringing the dumbbells up and away, I really try to think about reaching as far as I can with my hands. For some reason, I feel like when I reach and try to stretch my hands apart as far as possible, I feel it way more in the right spot on my rear delt, as opposed to only feeling it in my traps and only feeling it in my upper back. I think this was the 3rd set, because you can see that I'm having to take a break pretty much every 10 to 15 reps because I was really cooked here. But again, this is a timed set, so I'm not really keeping track of reps. I'm just trying to get as many good quality reps as possible. Or I shouldn't say I'm not keeping track of reps. I'm not counting the reps. I just want to make every rep count, if that makes sense.
All right, workout is done, which means that it's time for breakfast. And I know people say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but I would disagree. I think your post-workout meal is really the most important meal of the day. And I think the biggest mistake that I see grappling athletes make, especially grapplers that loves to lift heavy and roll hard, is that they don't dial in their nutrition, especially their post-training nutrition, because your nutrition isn't just about fuel
for your training sessions, which sometimes people don't even get that part correct, which can definitely negatively impact their performance. But nutrition really is the fuel that you need for each individual training session, but that it's also providing your body with the nutrients that are required for recovery. And if you miss one of those things, it's going to be really difficult to lift heavy and roll hard all in the same day. So for me, I pretty much have the same breakfast every single day. I'm really focusing on getting in easily digestible carbohydrates to help replenish some of those glycogen stores in my muscles, and easily digestible protein, kind of help kickstart that recovery process. I have a little bit of fat in this breakfast meal just from the eggs that I'm going to be cooking up, but I don't try to like go nuts on the fat intake because I have jiu-jitsu in a couple hours and I don't want too much fat to slow down my overall digestion. So really any sort of post-workout meal, whether I'm coaching an athlete or whether it's for myself, it always kind of focuses on the same thing. Easily digestible carbohydrates, easily digestible protein, replenishing electrolytes, and water. And then you can also put like, if you like to take your vitamins in the morning, or you're taking something that needs to be taken in the morning, you can take those at that time too. Don't think it really matters what time you take your supplements unless they're time dependent per se. Like you wouldn't want to take melatonin in the morning because it's going to make you super sleepy. You probably want to take melatonin at night. So the recipe for today's breakfast, you guys just saw, I peeled and soaked a potato. Potato was about 3.5 ounces. A lot of people say that bananas are great sources of potassium, but potatoes are even greater sources of potassium. I think a banana, I forget how much a banana contains as far as potassium goes, but a potato has like 800, 950 milligrams of potassium, depending on the size of the potato. So I get some electrolytes from the potato. I also got to get my spinach, which contains magnesium and some other good stuff in there as well. Plus a daily carrot. Shout out to Stan Efferding for putting me on to the daily carrot. And then I also salt my breakfast scramble that I'm making pretty good to make sure I get plenty of sodium as well. So, and would you look at that? I think we're out of spinach. So that's all right. I'll go to the store and get some spinach later, or my wife will go to the store and get some spinach. So, but we'll still be okay. So we got eggs for protein, a little bit of ground beef for some protein as well. We got potatoes and white rice as our main sources of carbohydrates. We got electrolytes in the form of potatoes. Usually I have spinach, which is also another good form of electrolytes, at least for magnesium. And then also salt my food to taste. And and coffee. I have another coffee with breakfast. What's interesting is that caffeine can help speed up the absorption and digestion of carbohydrates. So if you want to be able to quickly get in those carbohydrates, start digesting them a little bit faster, caffeine can help with that. So usually I have another coffee with my breakfast. And I like to cook it all in chicken stock. That's a tip from Stan Efferding. Honestly, this whole thing is inspired by Stan Efferding. A lot of times when people ask about where do I start with nutrition, what's the best diet, almost any diet can work. You can only eat ground beef 365 days a year and it's going to work for something. Doesn't mean it's going to be the best diet for someone who loves to lift heavy and roll hard, but every diet can work. And I don't think anybody needs to be married to any sort of one particular diet for the rest of their life. It's kind of like certain exercises. People ask, is this a good exercise? So it's not really good or bad. It's just a matter of, is that exercise most appropriate for your overall training goals? Is the bench press a good lower body exercise for developing lower body strength? No, because it's not appropriate, or it's not the most appropriate exercise for developing lower body strength compared to something like a squat. Nutrition, I view a lot of times the same way. So if you understand some of the basic principles of nutrition, you understand the different micro or macronutrient breakdown that you need to help fuel your training sessions and provide your body with the fuel and nutrients required for recovery. That's a great start, and you can also from there start getting into some of the micronutrients and vitamins and minerals and all that stuff, which is just good to know for general health. And I think a great resource to kind of get started with all of that is Stan Efferding's Vertical Diet. I first got turned on to Stan Efferding when I was in college. He was on Mark Bell's Power Project back in the day. And so I started listening to his content on nutrition, and I got his Vertical Diet ebook. And that's pretty much the same diet that I follow. I mean, I've been following it we're in 2025, and I think I started in 2018. So that would be 7 years ago, I believe. Or, yeah, I think 7 years ago. Anyway, so 4 ounces of ground beef, 1.5 cups of white rice, 3 whole eggs. These eggs are farm fresh eggs from my aunt's farm, which is awesome. Anytime I can get farm fresh eggs, I'm freaking psyched because they taste so much better. They're actually, I just realized these exact eggs aren't the farm fresh eggs. I grabbed them from the wrong container. Anyways, I did get some eggs from my aunt's farm, and I just grabbed them from the wrong container. So that kind of blows. And then we got our potato. There we go. And from there, we just scramble this bad boy up and basically just keep mixing and scrambling until everything's cooked. Then at the end is when I add the salt and throw a little pepper on there as well. If I had spinach, unfortunately we're out. I usually just chop that up, about 1 cup, dump it all in there, mix it in, and then we're all good to go. That's pretty much it. It's a super simple breakfast. It's easy to make. It's full of a bunch of cheap ingredients. People say, well, I don't want to say everyone says this, but some people do struggle to find ways to eat healthy on a budget, or not even eat healthy, but just eat in a way that's going to be best for their overall athletic development and their ability to lift heavy and roll hard. Everything that you see here, I'm pretty sure we got from Costco. Ground beef, super cheap from Costco. Chicken stock in bulk, super cheap, Costco. Potatoes, those might have actually been from Trader Joe's. The white rice, Costco. The eggs, Costco. This cranberry juice right here, which I drink about 2 ounces of cranberry juice every day just to help with the iodine content. Where is this from? This is from Trader Joe's too. So Trader Joe's and Costco is where we typically get everything. I'll scramble this up, and then I'll go ahead and make my coffee and get started on work. Today we are going to work for a couple hours before we go to the gi training session. Typically I try to get some app stuff done for a few hours, go train Jiu Jitsu for an hour to an hour and a half, and then come home and then kind of crank out the rest of my work stuff, whether that's working on the Strength Matrix training app or working with different athletes online and helping them get stronger, helping them improve their conditioning, helping them get jacked, so that way they can lift heavy and roll hard. So we're going to finish cooking this up, and I'll catch you guys after Jiu Jitsu. Peace. All right, I'm kind of a dingus because the day that I did the max effort lower, dynamic effort upper workout, I went to the gi class, and I totally forgot to bring my camera. I was all excited. I'm like, I'm going to start vlogging, and I'm going to bring my camera and vlog my rolls, and I completely forgot like a dingus. So this is training from another day where I went to the no-gi class. I'm training with my buddy Zach. Zach is one of my oldest and closest friends. He's my oldest training partner. We first started training together in middle school when we were wrestling, and we wrestled all throughout high school, or he wrestled all throughout high school. I wrestled up until my junior year. We lifted and competed in CrossFit all throughout high school. We put a ton of time training together, which has been awesome. Neither of us wrestled in college, but after we graduated college, we reconnected, got back into lifting together a few times a week, and then we started doing jiu-jitsu, and now we're training jiu-jitsu. So what we're doing today is some constraint-based games to help develop the skills to escape mount, as well as further develop the skills of maintaining and holding the mount position, or at least pinning the bottom person. And so the focus for the top person is going to start in mount, with control under both elbows and chest-to-chest connection. The focus for the top person is to hold the bottom person on their back and control chest to chest under both elbows as long as possible. Now, if the bottom person turns and exposes their back, as long as the top person can stay connected to them, stay either chest to chest or chest to back connection, they're okay. It's a continuous game for the top person. So the top person can't do anything to win. They're just trying to hold and keep achieving the focus of the game as long as possible. The bottom person, you can see Zach is even working the bottom person focus right now, is the focus for the bottom person is to get their knees in between the hips of themselves and the top player, or completely detached from them, like a full detached escape. And so anytime the bottom person ends up fulfilling that focus or ends up achieving the win condition, then we switch top bottom and we play it again. And these constraint-based games, a lot of the stuff I originally picked up from Greg Souders from Standard Jiu Jitsu. I recently just uploaded an interview that I did with Greg. So if you want to learn how to train and make faster progress in Jiu Jitsu, check out that interview. We go over exactly how to train at each belt level. So if you're a white belt, we give you tips on how to optimize your training as a white belt. If you're a blue belt, we give you tons of tips on how to optimize your training as a blue belt. So white, blue, purple, brown, and black belt. There's a ton of amazing tips on how you can use these constraint-based games or the constraints-led approach to enhance your progress as a grappling athlete. So as you can see, I'm on top right here. I started chest-to-chest control under both elbows, and what I try to do and what I've been working on is really trying to transition from controlling under both elbows with my arms and sliding up into that high mount position where I'm using my hips and my knees to control under both elbows and pin the bottom person's back to the floor. Zach did a really good job of kind of pressing my hips down towards his hips so he can start to bridge and bump me a little bit. Zach's starting to turn and get on his edge. So as a top person, I need to find a way to maintain control. And I can't really see what I'm doing. I don't know if I have a gift wrap or if I'm working some sort of seatbelt and Kimura grip. But as long as I can maintain chest to chest or chest to back control, I'm in a good spot. I'm still fulfilling the task for this game. Now, I know that constraint-based games get a lot of flack and criticism for being, overly complicated or unnecessarily complicated, or it doesn't really work and you have to drill, or it only works for beginners. And honestly, I couldn't disagree more. I think it works for beginners. I think it works for advanced people. I've been grappling for over a decade, and of the time I've spent grappling, the last 8 years, I've been exclusively doing jiu-jitsu. And even now, 8 years into jiu-jitsu, I get a ton of value out of doing this constraints-based game style of training. For me personally, it's way more fun and it's way more engaging. I hate drilling. It is so boring. I don't like doing it. I don't even feel like I get that much out of it. I think it's good sometimes to see someone demonstrate a certain technique or show slowly and kind of demonstrate the thought process of what they're looking for when they would do it in a live situation. But just doing like sets of 2 reps back and forth of learning a specific technique, I really don't think that's as effective when it comes to learning grappling skills compared to getting really good at using some of these constraint-based games to develop grappling skills. So this first round that I did with Zach, this was all about escaping the mount position and starting in the mount position. This next game, we're going to start from the back. The rules are pretty similar. So offensive person or person starting on the back has 2 hooks in, and they have chest to back connection, but they have grips under both armpits. They can't start with a seatbelt. You can get whatever grips you want. You can body lock. You can get a 1-to-1 grip. You can get a 2-on-1. You can get a cross wrist control with an elbow grip. You can get whatever grips you want, but your arms have to be under their armpits to start. The focus for the person on the back is to pretty much control and work to submit the defensive person. So that could be a strangle, that can be some sort of arm lock. If you go from the back position to the mount position and you still have chest to chest connection, you can keep working to a submission. The goal for the defensive person, which Zach just did a great job of doing, is to either turn and face the offensive person, or if you turn and face them and your knees aren't in between each other's hips, you got to bring your knees into each other's hips. So Zach ended up turning and escaping, ended up kind of heisting me off of his back and sliding off. He ended up getting up on top and facing me, so that was a win for him. And now he's starting on my back. He's kind of switching to a seatbelt grip. I'm trying to distance myself as much as possible, get my back away from his chest, and then he ends up sinking in this ridiculously tight rear naked choke grip. So what I'm trying to do, I know we're kind of moving off of the frame here, is I'm trying to point my body straight up to the ceiling and drive my head as far as I can next to his head. So that way you think like I'm moving my neck upwards and trying to hold his arm down, so that way he can't continue to squeeze and finish that choke. So I was able to get out of the choke, but I'm not out of danger yet. I believe he has a body triangle locked up right now. I'm trying to control his choking arm, and he's doing a great job of maintaining that chest to back control. Zach is ridiculously strong. We're about the same size. I'm a little bit bigger than he is. I think I'm about 10 pounds heavier than him, but Zach has crazy, crazy strong grips, and is a really strong grappler. So as you can see here, I'm starting to try to scrape my body down to the floor, get my back to the mat, start to turn and face him, which I was able to do, and I was able to get my knees in between. So I ended up winning that exchange, and now we're switching, and we're going with me on the back, both hooks in. I don't recall what grips I had to start. I think I had a 2-on-1 grip, or maybe I had a 1-to-1 grip. So anyways, as soon as the game started, I'm trying to create some sort of diagonal control over his back. One thing that I've learned while doing this game is, even though I have control of both hips, if I can't get some sort of diagonal control over his body, it makes it really, really tough to control the person in front, because they can start to turn and create more space and start to twist a little bit, which makes it really, really difficult. So I'm starting to get back to this diagonal control, kind of. I mean, I have one hook in, and I'm fighting with the choking hand. Zach's doing a good job of defending. Trying to work some hand fighting here. You can see Zach is trying to get his chest up and his back to the floor. He ends up sitting all the way up, and I start using a power half to try to bring him back down to the mat. He's still trying to scrape and get his shoulder blades to the mat. I was able to get that choking arm in under his, not under his neck, but like under his head. Finish, or get the body triangle. Once I have the body triangle, I feel really, really strong. And not everyone has the dimensions or the length of their legs to get a body triangle, or the mobility to successfully put in a body triangle that feels comfortable and doesn't feel like it's going to make their knees explode. But if you can build the mobility to work on your body triangle, once I started doing body triangles, I started having a lot of success with it. Felt really good with it. And it's just it's a brutal way to just squeeze someone's lower body and control them. We can't really see what's going on here, but I think I'm starting to get an arm across the neck and get into a good choking position. When hand fighting on the neck, I like to use some of the stuff that Giancarlo Bodoni talks about when looking to switch back and forth between choking arms. I did end up getting the submission there. But one thing that Giancarlo talks about is threatening the submission or threatening the choke with one arm and kind of just punching through with the other arm. So if you start the choke with your right arm, as soon as they start to defend, you just punch your left arm through as hard as you, maybe you don't punch it. I mean, you don't want to punch them in the face, but you aggressively set if you're starting the movement with your right arm, they defend the right arm as the choking arm, you aggressively set the left arm in as the choking arm. And you may have to do that a couple times before you can secure it under the chin and before you're really able to finish with the submission. So Zach's on my back. I believe he has an underhook with his right arm and an overhook with his left arm. I think he has wrist control. I'm trying to turn as much as I can, separate that chest to back control, and that's the time. That's it for today's vlog. Lift heavy, roll hard, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.